June 22, 1941. Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history. Millions of Axis soldiers surged east, believing the Soviet Union would collapse within months. But they were about to enter a war unlike anything they had imagined. In the opening weeks, the Red Army suffered catastrophic losses. Soviet aircraft were destroyed, armies were surrounded, and cities fell. German forces advanced hundreds of miles. Yet behind the collapsing front, the Soviet Union was preparing to fight a much longer war. Factories were dismantled and loaded onto trains, along with their workers and machinery. Entire industries were moved thousands of miles east. Beyond the reach of German armies, Soviet factories began producing the weapons needed to survive, and eventually to strike back. Then came the Russian winter. German troops reached the outskirts of Moscow, but their advance stalled. Freezing temperatures, exhausted supply lines, and fierce Soviet resistance stopped the offensive. In December, the Red Army counterattacked. Germany had suffered its first major strategic setback. In 1942, Hitler turned south toward Stalingrad. The city became a nightmare of rubble and close combat. Every factory, street, and building became a battlefield. German troops captured much of the city, but outside it, Soviet armies were quietly gathering for a counterattack. On November 19th, the Soviet offensive began. Soviet armies struck the German flanks from north and south, crushing the weaker Axis forces, protecting them. Within days, the German Sixth Army was surrounded. Stalingrad had become a trap, and Germany could not escape. Germany tried to regain the initiative at Kursk, but the Soviets knew the attack was coming. They built minefields, trenches, artillery defenses, and armored reserves. When German tanks advanced, they encountered a battlefield prepared to absorb their assault and destroy their momentum. After Kursk, the direction of the war changed permanently. Soviet armies pushed west, liberating vast territories. Rivers were crossed, cities reclaimed, and German forces were driven backward. The army that had once fought for survival was now marching toward Germany. In June 1944, the Red Army launched Operation Barbarossa. The offensive shattered Germany's Army Group Center. Thousands of soldiers were captured, entire formations were destroyed, and Soviet forces advanced deep into Eastern Europe. The German Eastern Front was collapsing. By 1945, Soviet troops had crossed into German territory. The war Hitler had begun nearly 4 years earlier had returned to Germany itself. Towns were destroyed, armies were exhausted, and the Red Army was approaching its final objective, the capital. April 1945, Berlin became the final battlefield. Soviet artillery surrounded the city as tanks and infantry fought through its shattered streets. German resistance was desperate, but the outcome was already becoming inevitable. The Red Army was closing in on the heart of Nazi Germany. On April 30th, Adolf Hitler died in his bunker. Days later, Berlin fell. On May 8th, Nazi Germany surrendered. Across Europe, the war was finally ending, but victory on the Eastern Front had come at an unimaginable price. Millions of soldiers and civilians had been killed. Entire cities and villages lay in ruins. The Soviet Union had suffered devastation on an enormous scale. The Eastern Front had been won, but the landscape was marked by a generation of sacrifice and loss. The Eastern Front was not won in a single battle. It was decided across thousands of miles, from Moscow to Stalingrad, Kursk to Berlin. Germany expected a short campaign. Instead, it found a war it could not survive. And in the end, the road east became the road to Berlin.
For more Cold War documentaries, technical, and history videos, watch the next upcoming video. This is ChroniQ.